Oh, look at that. Another discussion about a Switch 2 edition title. I guess we shouldn't really be surprised. Those are a vast majority of the games that are coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2 at the moment anyway. Okay, so this is specifically about Mario Party Jamboree. For those of you unaware, and I went over this in a previous video about Super Mario Party Jamboree specifically, the game was released for $80, the first $80 Mario Party title. Except in the case of Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 edition, as opposed to something like Kirby, due to the nature of how they're actually selling the game, you actually might have a stronger case to claim that the added-on content was DLC. And the reason I say that is because if you buy Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 edition, on the main menu you would have two modes to click from. One of them would be Jamboree, which is literally just the exact same Switch 1 game with no enhancements or anything, like no graphical enhancements as well. And the other mode was Jamboree TV. So in this case, because when you buy the game for $80, you are literally just getting the Switch 1 game plus the additional content, you could probably argue more that it is a deluxe edition, and it is actual DLC added to the base game. Because if you were to buy just the regular Super Mario Party Jamboree, you would get effectively the exact same experience if you were playing on the Switch 2 minus Jamboree TV, because there are no enhancements, like I said. As opposed to like Kirby, where you can actually not get that enhanced Kirby gameplay version, your 60 frames per second, without also purchasing the DLC, and you can go into more detail, watch the last video that I uploaded earlier today. Anyway, so this was kind of like highway robbery, because a lot of people bought the Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Party Jamboree and found out that there were no enhancements to the base game. Jamboree TV ran at 1440p, and the base game ran exactly like it did on the Nintendo Switch 1, which was 720p handheld and 1080p docked. Which obviously angered a lot of people because many people went out and bought the Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Party Jamboree in hopes that they would be getting that enhancement. Sales data across the world show that a lot of people actually spent $80 for this, like they bought the actual Switch 2 edition full version for this. So imagine buying a Switch 2 game, going home, trying to jump on and play online with your friends and finding out that you were playing 720p on your handheld. It bugged a lot of people. So I don't know if any of you are aware, but an hour ago, Super Mario Party Jamboree got an update, specifically the Switch 2 edition. And the update reads the first patch note that if you're playing the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, when you select Super Mario Party Jamboree, that's the main base game, the Switch 1 game without all of the Jamboree TV stuff, when you select Super Mario Party Jamboree from the title screen, the video will be full HD, which is 1080p. So basically, Nintendo has decided to enhance the experience of Super Mario Party Jamboree for the buyers of the Switch 2 edition. And really, all they did was make it so that the handheld experience now matches the docked experience resolution-wise. And somehow, I feel like that's more offensive than them not updating it at all. Basically, your only benefit now for playing Super Mario Party Jamboree on the Nintendo Switch 2, and specifically going out of your way to make sure you have the upgraded version, which is an $80 value, is that your handheld resolution now matches the docked resolution, and both of those resolutions are capped off at 1080p, whereas when you're playing Jamboree TV, which is that additional content, that's 1440p. Why they decided to not up the resolution of the base game to 1440p, on docked at least, is beyond me. Like, part of the nice thing about having a 4K console is that the games have better resolutions, right? Like, okay, yeah, the up-res handheld going up to 1080p, that's cool, you're putting the handheld mode to its limit, and I guess that's technically better than what they were doing before, where they were making you play 720p handheld, but I can't imagine this is gonna sit too well with many people. But this actually leads to a larger problem, and this might be a bigger concern for a lot of people that own Nintendo Switch 2s. One of the biggest complaints that many people have made since they got their Nintendo Switch 2 until now is that they're stuck playing the Switch 1 games in 720p, but they're stretched out to fit the 1080p screen. So for people that are sensitive to this stuff, and I realize not everybody will be sensitive to this stuff, the experience playing Switch 1 games on the Nintendo Switch 2 looks worse than it would if you were playing on the Nintendo Switch 1. And that's not even considering the poor LCD or if you used to play on an OLED or any of that stuff. I'm just saying that they stretched out the image and it looks bad, and a lot of people have noticed that, and a lot of people have complained about that. And obviously this doesn't apply to games that have actually gotten updates from Nintendo. Those games are running better, they look good in handheld, they look good in docked, and they've gotten the free update and the enhancements and all that fun stuff. But what a lot of people were hoping is that when they got a chance to play their Nintendo Switch 2 in handheld, If Nintendo could somehow make it so that when they put a Nintendo Switch 1 game into their Switch 2, it would hopefully up-res the handheld experience to 1080p, or at the very least let you play at 720p on your screen without stretching the image. But now, with this update for Super Mario Party Jamboree, it's pretty safe to assume that unless a game specifically gets the attention from Nintendo, whether it's a Switch 2 edition or a free update, you're realistically not going to be getting a 1080p experience when you play in handheld. Because a lot of people were hanging on to this unrealistic hope that somehow the Switch 2 playing in handheld would trick the game into thinking that it was docked on the Switch 1, making it effectively 1080p. Like I said, it was unrealistic from the beginning, but I think this kind of confirms that to an extent. This shows that Nintendo will bump games up to 1080p from the Nintendo Switch 1, but it's only going to happen if Nintendo gives that game that full attention. Which means for a lot of you that might have a library of Switch 1 games that are not that popular and they're probably not going to be getting any kind of update from Nintendo, or if it's a third-party title and you were kind of hoping that the console would find a way to do it automatically and up-res those games, or of course if you have a somewhat popular Nintendo Switch 1 game but it's just not enough to get a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, there's a very good chance throughout the entirety of the duration of the Switch 2's life, you will be playing Switch 1 games in handheld and they will look worse than they would if you played on the Switch 1. And again, that's strictly talking about the resolution that's stretched out, that's not even mentioning the poor LCD that's underpowered and better than the PSP, but not quite better than anything that was made in the past decade. That ghosting is going to be there whether you're sensitive to it or not. Now, the bigger discussion here is whether or not it makes Super Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 Edition plus Jamboree TV a worthy value at $80. And obviously it does not. I don't even know if people are enjoying Jamboree TV. Like every review I've seen about it, everybody's like kind of like, yeah, it's okay, but I prefer playing the base game by itself without this stuff. I mean, I guess the mouse minigames might be cool, but I feel like that would get old. Especially when you consider that a lot of people that play Jamboree don't even play with the motion control minigames, so why would they play with the mouse minigames? But yeah, if you move the Jamboree part of it, at least now you have something to compare it to. If you don't own Super Mario Party Jamboree and you're strictly a docked player, the only thing that separates the $60 game from the $80 game is Jamboree TV. And I'm guessing for most people, Jamboree TV wouldn't even be worth it, so you might as well just buy the Switch 1 version at that point, because there is no enhancement if you play the Switch 2 version. Which is still very absurd that you're still going to be getting only 1080p for the base game. Like, they could have up-resed that to 1440p, but I mentioned that already earlier. Now, if you happen to be somebody that plays handheld, well, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So now you can either buy a Switch 1 game and play it on your Switch 2 and have a 720p resolution, or you can get a 1080p resolution plus Jamboree TV. Seeing as how this is Mario Party, I highly doubt a lot of people are even going to be caring about that 720p versus 1080p, so they probably just gonna buy that Switch 1 version. But at the very least, this whole situation went from a borderline false advertising, terrible ripoff highway robbery to a situation where it's kind of like, this feels insulting that they put a little bit of effort, but it wasn't enough effort. Why didn't they just up-res the entire game like normal people? Which I guess is better than being probably false advertising highway robbery. So I guess you could say it's an improvement if you play handheld, is what I'm trying to get at here. Anyway, look, this whole situation is quite frankly a little insane to me. It's kind of hilarious. I think the fact that Mario Party Jamboree took up so much time in the initial direct in April and is actually selling fairly well, more than it deserves to be selling, is just like the most Nintendo thing ever, right? Nintendo fans will come in and they'll buy Mario. They will buy the names they're familiar with, they will buy the first party titles, and they don't even gotta try. They slap together a piece of crap and throw it on the shelves and people show up and they're like, yay, it's Mario! And it seems to work every time. The third parties are going to be pulling their hair out wondering how Super Mario Party Jamboree outsold them throughout the past month. But hey, it's a Nintendo console, people buy it for the first party titles. Anyway, that's all I got for right now. I just wanted to talk about this update real quick. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.